From number one New York Times bestselling author Victoria Schwab comes the dark and eerie new young adult novel, Gallant. And here today to talk about it is Miss Schwab. Good morning, Victoria.
Good morning.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
having
Thanks for
me.
having me. Well, thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about Gallant.
So, Gallant is a story of Olivia Prior, a girl who has spent the majority of her life in an orphanage. She knows nothing of her family except the journal that she was found with, which seems to dissolve into madness. But at the very back of this journal is a letter from her mother telling her that she will be safe as long as she stays away from Gallant. For years, Olivia has no idea what this means until she receives a letter from an uncle she's never met calling her home to the family estate, which is called Gallant. But when she gets there, she discovers no uncle, a house falling into disrepair, a garden being strangled by strange weeds, and a wall at the back of the property with a locked door that seems to lead nowhere.
Why does that sound like my house? This is very interesting. Now, where do you get the idea for this particular book?
Oh goodness, we get asked that question a lot as authors, and I think it's this idea. I think we assume that ideas are single entities, right? Whereas I like to think of ideas like a meal. So it's less about where I got the meal and more about where I got the ingredients for the meal. And I collect the ingredients over months or years. I had this idea for a wall. And if you think about a wall, it really only works if it encloses something. But this piece of wall on the Gallant estate is just one fragment of wall that you could walk around. So the question becomes, why is there a locked door in a wall that doesn't keep anything in or out? And from there, why does Olivia need to come there? What is beyond the wall that's so dangerous? So it kind of just spirals out into what ifs, that those become the ingredients for the meal.
Wow, that sounds interesting. Very interesting meal. Exactly, very interesting. So, Victoria, how do you feel about your previous works, First Kill and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which are about to become a new film and TV series? How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's really exciting. So writing novels, it's beautiful, but it's lonely. You're the god of your own world. You're in full control, but you're also entirely responsible for conveying the story. If I don't write it down on paper, it doesn't exist. So you're trying to create a film that you then transcribe onto paper so that the same movie plays in someone else's head. When you're working for TV and film, it becomes this incredibly collaborative experience. Yes, it's a creative trust fall, but at the same time, you're not alone in it. And there's all of these people that are helping bring a thing to life. And I've just found it to be a really thrilling experience.
Sounds like it. I mean, did you expect this to happen to you 15, 20 years ago?
No, I mean, I don't expect it to happen to me now. I'm just really excited that I get to make things up for a living. And I think it's really important that at the end of the day, I have to remind myself that what I am in control of is the words on the page, that the adaptations are super exciting and I'm thrilled to be a part of them. But at the same time, I'm not in control of those situations. And at the end of the day, the reason that I do what I do is because I love creating. So I often have to reground myself and just remember that I'm doing this part and everything else is icing.
What do you think you could say is contributing to your success right now?
I think stubbornness in a lot of ways. When I first started 12 years ago, I've always written really strange books, really quiet, strange, tense books that don't necessarily fit in the center of the mainstream and commercial culture. And that's really hard when you're first starting because people don't want to take a chance on it. They don't want to risk it. But over time, I just kept writing because the rule is, if a book does well, you're going to need another book. If the book doesn't do well, you're going to need another book. And so I just kept writing the stories that I wanted to tell. And at some point, they got a kind of gravitational mass to them. People kept reading them and kept sharing them. And I got a large enough audience that I could then take more chances and tell stranger stories instead of having to drift towards a cultural mainstream.
So, you've done more than 20 books, so success has come over the period of time. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that my first like 6 or 7 books barely made a drop. It was really around like 8, 9, 10 that it started to achieve a momentum. But there are readers who have been there since the beginning, and I will be grateful to them forever. But yeah, now I'm to the point where, hopefully anyway, I just get to build a lake instead of a teacup, right? My readership has just gone wide and deep.
So, here's the question. So from books 1 to 4 that weren't successful, what kept you driving towards that?
That's where the stubbornness comes in, right? And this is my best example of it. The Near, which was my very first published novel, and it went out of print within 18 months because it didn't sell well enough. Then when my books became successful, The Near Witch came back into print and became an instant New York Times bestseller. I didn't revise a single word of that book. I didn't change anything within the covers of that book. The only thing that changed was the size of the audience and the belief in my work. And so I think I just wasn't willing to quit. Maybe it's because I was young. Maybe it's because I didn't have anything else. I was just trying to prove to myself that I could keep doing this thing.
I like that attitude, Victoria. A lot more people need to have that same attitude and be successful. We've been talking with Victoria Schwab, New York #1 Times best-selling author, about her brand new book, Gallant. Thank you again for joining us on Morning Blend, and thank you for describing my house to everyone.
You're very welcome. I'm also worried about your house.
Thank you, Victoria.